Hey everybody, welcome back to my garden. Today I want to give you a quick tour of this flower bed right behind me. I'm kind of halfway through redoing it, and so I wanted to give you a shot of it now so that you can see it kind of in the process. I have a whole bunch of plants on the patio kind of behind the camera that are going to go into this bed, but I wanted to show you what it looks like after I did the tour of the whole garden, but before I kind of start putting all of these plants in. So starting here on my right, I have this big lilac. Now you might remember if you watched the full garden tour, which will be linked down in the description box below, I said that I was going to take that out. I decided that I was actually going to try to transplant it. Now, it is a fully grown dwarf lilac, so I have no idea if it's going to survive or not. I did do that in a video though, so that will also be linked down in the description box. But this is a much better spot for it. Before, it was kind of right in front of this crabapple to my left, and so now I've transplanted it up into the corner, and so it can kind of own that space. And now that it's up there, I've decided that I really like a lilac there, so even if that one doesn't survive, I will probably buy a nice big one to put in its spot. And then moving down, there is a peony that before was kind of shrouded by weeds, but now you can kind of see it in all of its glory. And it's not blooming right now, so it's not going to do much the rest of this year, but I'm really excited to see what color it is next season when it is blooming in the spring. And then moving down, there's a few more weeds that obviously need to be pulled and old pots that were left from the previous owners. But then right here, this is my dwarf weeping crabapple. You can see this also is not very big, but it's fully grown. It does need some kind of shaping work, so I'm having somebody come this week to prune it up professionally so that it comes out looking really good. In the meantime, though, this is definitely going to stay here. It's one of my favorite plants in the whole garden. And then below it, there's one hosta that was here, and then I have a few other hostas that I'm going to group with it directly next to that one hosta. I'm thinking that it will be really pretty to have a nice little grouping of hostas underneath the crabapple tree, and they should get enough shade there. And then moving down, this is where the lilac used to be, so it only got moved about 10 feet. Obviously digging up a fully grown shrub is definitely a risk though, but even if I lose it, I'm super happy to have it out of here, because now you can actually see the crabapple tree, and you can also see this heirloom rose on my left, which it does not look very good, so I'm not going to give you a close-up shot of it. It definitely has not been pruned in many years, and there's a lot of dead wood in there, so I will prune the dead wood out of that now, and then in late fall or early spring, I will come back in and cut it back hard, and I think that will kind of help rejuvenate it and get it to look a little bit better. And then there was a ton of weeds in this area that got pulled. Then moving down, you can see there's actually another rose in here that I had not noticed before, but now that some of the weeds are gone, you can see there's this really dark red rose. That one also needs a little bit of help. So once I finish getting the weeds out of here, that one too will get pruned back pretty hard. And then I've got a couple of grasses here. There used to be a number of more of them. I took out 3. You can see there's 3 holes. Those were also grasses. I had roses that I was going to put in that place, but once I got to digging, I realized that probably wasn't the best place for them. But I'm super happy to have the 3 of the grasses out of here and have it opened up a little bit more. And then right here, there's another dwarf lilac. I'm assuming this is the same variety as the one that I moved. It looks identical, but without seeing the bloom, it's hard to tell. This one is also not in the best location. I'm not planning on moving this one though. I will see how the first one does, and if the first one survives and kind of thrives after being moved, I might dig this one up too. It's beautiful and it kind of works in this spot, but it's not exactly where I would have put one, so we'll just have to see on that. And then moving down, you can see this is the spots where I've dug out some of the other larger grasses and some of the weeds that had gotten really big. There was weeds that were probably 5-6 feet tall in this area that I've pulled, and there was a whole bunch more that still need pulled. But in that process, I found another rose back there. No idea what variety that one is, but I'm happy to have another rose. And then in the front, there's this climbing rose. This one, again, this is not the right plant for this spot because it's a climbing rose, and so I've cut it back so it's a little bit more manageable now, but it doesn't have anything to climb on. So this one will definitely need to get moved. My plan is to eventually just bump it to the back of this bed and then give it something to climb on. But for now, I don't have a trellis, and so I'm just going to kind of let it ride in that spot. And then moving down, you can see there's a couple more daylilies back here. There's also a whole bunch of columbine. The columbine is just seeding itself and kind of taking over. There's a whole bunch of it now in this area, and so I've actually been pulling quite a bit of it, just because I don't need an entire bed of just columbine. But I'm definitely saving some of it because that will be some really nice spring and early summer color next year. And then there's some other daylilies back dotted in here. I found a tag on one of them, and unfortunately they are the variety Stella de Oro, which is just kind of the generic yellow one, and unfortunately that one is like my least favorite. I've had it in every single garden I have ever had, and so those will also probably come out. At this point, I could probably have a garden that never has daylilies in it ever again, and I would be perfectly happy. But for now, they look okay. Some of them are a little bit squashed from all of the weeding and digging stuff out, so they will probably eventually need to come out, but for now I'm just going to kind of let it ride. And then I've got a pretty good sized hosta here. I'm not sure what the variety it is, but it's doing quite well, especially because it's getting more sun than I would have thought it would like, but apparently it can handle it. Then directly behind it, I just planted a Lady of Shallot David Austin Rose. That is one that I moved from my garden in San Diego. And so what I did is I just bare rooted it and then shoved it in a box for 2 weeks and then planted it here. It has some new growth though, so I think it's going to survive, but we'll see how it does over the winter. And then moving a little bit farther down, you can see there's still a whole bunch of weeds in the back of this bed that I haven't gotten to. But then in the front, there's this big hydrangea macrophylla, which the common name is bigleaf hydrangea, and like I mentioned in some of my other videos, hydrangea macrophylla would not be my first choice for a garden this far north. In my experience, they tend to do better with a little bit warmer winters, so eventually that will probably come out and be replaced with a hydrangea paniculata, which is just a better variety for this area. But for now, I will give it the opportunity to prove me wrong, and if it does really well, you can see it's doing okay now. There's some chlorosis on the leaves, but it's not too bad. But anyway, if it does well moving forward, then it can stay, but I'm just kind of guessing that it isn't going to thrive as well as a different type of hydrangea would. And then moving down, you can see this is the area where I've kind of stopped. This is the area where I've stopped weeding and stuff, haven't made it into this area, but there really isn't much. There's just a couple of hostas, another hydrangea macrophylla, a little bit of a stilbe, and then a whole bunch of weeds that need pulled. But anyway, make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you can see all of the perennials going in this bed and see how this bed kind of transforms in the weeks and months and years to come. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.